November 1913. Seven of the world's most powerful bankers boarded a private train in total secrecy. They used fake names. No reporters. No records. They traveled to a private island off the coast of Georgia. What they decided in that room controls your money today. This is the story of how the Federal Reserve was born in secret. To understand why, we need to go back 6 years earlier, 1907. The American banking system was collapsing. A financial panic had started when several major banks failed. There was no central bank, no one to stop the bleeding. People rushed to withdraw their money. Banks had no cash. The entire economy was about to implode. One man stepped in to save everything. J.P. Morgan, the richest banker in America. He personally organized a bailout. He convinced other wealthy bankers to pool their money. He literally locked them in his library until they agreed. Morgan saved the economy. But here's what nobody talks about. He also proved that private bankers had more power than the government, and that terrified everyone. America had a problem. The country needed a way to prevent panics. But nobody trusted a central bank. Americans remembered the first and second banks of the United States. Both had been shut down because people feared concentrated financial power. So any new system had to look like it wasn't controlled by bankers, even though it would be. That's where the secret meeting comes in. November 22nd, 1913. 7 men arrived at Jekyll Island. Senator Nelson Aldrich, Assistant Treasury Secretary Piatt Andrew, and representatives from the biggest banks, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller's Bank, Kuhn Loeb, and National City Bank. They used fake names, first names only. They told staff they were going duck hunting. For 9 days, they wrote the blueprint for the Federal Reserve System. No minutes were kept, no records. The whole thing was designed to look like a government institution while being controlled by private banks. Here's what made their plan genius. They created 12 regional Federal Reserve banks spread across the country. It looked decentralized, democratic, but all 12 reported to a board of governors. And who would sit on that board? Representatives chosen by the biggest banks. They called it the Federal Reserve to sound like a government agency. But it's not. It's a private corporation owned by member banks. The name was marketing, pure deception. But they still needed Congress to approve it. The problem? Most of Congress was controlled by progressives who hated big banks. So they waited. December 1913, right before Christmas. Most congressmen had gone home for the holidays. On December 23rd, with a skeleton crew in Congress, they pushed the Federal Reserve Act through. President Woodrow Wilson signed it that same day. Years later, Wilson would say it was the biggest mistake of his presidency. So what does the Federal Reserve actually do? Officially, it controls monetary policy. It sets interest rates. It can print money. It's supposed to maintain stable prices and maximum employment. But here's what they don't tell you. When the Fed prints money, it doesn't just create it. It lends it to the government, with interest. The U.S. government borrows from a private banking system and pays interest on its own currency. Think about that. We pay interest to private banks for the privilege of using money. And it gets worse. Every time the Fed prints money, it devalues all the money already in circulation. That's inflation. It's not prices going up. It's your money becoming worth less. Since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, the dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power. That's not an accident. That's the system working as designed. Inflation is a hidden tax. The Fed prints money for the government to spend. You pay for it through higher prices. So, who benefits from this system? Not you. Banks. When the Fed prints money, who gets it first? Banks. They can borrow at near zero interest and lend it out at higher rates. They make money from money that didn't exist. This is called the Cantillon effect. Those closest to money creation get rich. Those furthest away get poorer. And guess who's furthest away? Regular people. Your wages don't keep up with inflation. Your savings lose value. But bank profits hit record highs year after year. The most blatant example? 2008, the financial crisis. Banks had made reckless bets and lost. They should have failed. That's how capitalism works. But the Fed stepped in. $16 trillion in secret loans. They didn't ask Congress. They didn't tell the public. They just printed money and gave it to banks. Meanwhile, millions of Americans lost their homes. No bailout for them. The Fed saved the very institutions that caused the crisis. Because remember, the Fed is owned by banks. It's not there to protect you. It's there to protect them. So, can we end the Federal Reserve? Technically, yes. Congress created it. Congress can abolish it. But here's the reality. The Fed is now so embedded in the system that unwinding it would be catastrophic. The entire global economy runs on dollars. The Fed controls dollar supply. Ending it suddenly would trigger a collapse worse than any depression. We're trapped. The secret meeting on Jekyll Island created a system we can't escape from. At least, not easily. Some say Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are the answer. A monetary system outside government control. Others say we need to return to gold. But for now, the Fed remains, more powerful than ever. Here's what Jekyll Island teaches us. Power concentrates in secret. The most important financial decision in American history was made by 7 men on a private island. No debate, no vote, no transparency. And once that power is established, it's almost impossible to take back. The Federal Reserve isn't your enemy. It's not evil. It's a system designed to benefit those who control it. And those people aren't you. Every dollar in your wallet is a Federal Reserve note, not a dollar. A note, a promise of debt. And that debt is owed to the banks that created the system over a century ago in secret. The Federal Reserve turned money into debt, and debt into control. A secret meeting on a private island created a system that now controls the world's most powerful currency. 7 men, 9 days, over a century of consequences. This is how power works. Not through force, but through money. And understanding who controls your money? That's the first step to freedom.